Do you believe that you are a unique, unrepeatable pattern of love? That you are a unique, unrepeatable pattern of love? Because you are. Everyone on this planet is a unique, unrepeatable pattern of love. And with that, in every moment where you arrive at that moment, it is a unique combination of souls, a unique combination of energies that will never be recreated again in the same way, in the same timing, with the same conditions, with the same qualities, with the same potential. There will be other potentials, other expressions, but never the same as when you show up where you show up in every moment. That is a call. That is a calling. And it is a high and sacred calling. You are an emanation, a demonstration, and an expression of love. And in Unity we teach and we know God is love. There is no separation between the idea, the concept, the feeling, the vibration, the essence of love and God. There was no mistake in the making of you, not any part of you. There was no mistake in the making of your fellow beings on this planet. There is no error in the expression of you. I was at a retirement celebration ceremony last night. I had the honor of being invited to do a sacred service as part of this retirement celebration from one of our beloveds at UVC. And in that, I got to sit next to this amazing woman, and she was sharing with me some stories about her life and her experience. And one of the things she said from her mother, who has made her transition and is in her freedom form, she said her mother used to say this, and she said she's looked it up. She couldn't find where this quote came from. But her mother used to say, "There are no mistakes in the universe, only errors in perception." There are no mistakes in the universe, only errors in perception. Can we breathe into that truth in times that we question? Can we breathe into that truth in times that we are challenged? Can we allow ourselves to have those words and ask them to reframe our perception so that we may see with clear vision, that we may see with spiritual eyes? Do you believe that we are all unique, unrepeatable patterns of love? If for some reason you don't believe that, you're not alone. Most people don't. It's pretty ordinary not to believe that. If they did, they would know it to be the truth of everyone they meet, and they would treat everyone in a like manner. There would be a reverence for how they walk on the planet. And when we do wake up to that truth, and when we're aware of it in the present moment, we do walk with that reverence. Summer said in one of her presentations, she said, "You are infinitely, divinely exquisite. You are bigger and better than any statistical umbrella that any mathematician would like to put you under, but sometimes you forget that." Sometimes you forget that. Sometimes we walk with others who forget that. Sometimes we walk with ones who try to tell people that that's the truth, that this forgetfulness is actually truth. What does forgetting cost us? What does forgetting cost us truly? And what is the reward of not forgetting? What is the reward of truly knowing this about self and other, about all life? I think that the cost is everything, and the reward is everything. The cost is everything, and the reward is everything. I asked Summer this morning to play her favorite songs. I asked her when we were talking about what music to play this morning, I said, just give me a handful of your favorite songs to play. And the reason why I said that is because I know something about people. We come alive when we are in love with the moment. When we are doing, singing, playing, speaking what we love, we come alive. And that's what the world is asking of us. That's what the world is calling us to do. It is calling us to come alive. And something happens when we come alive. The more you dive into what you love, the more you will feel the life inside of you. The more you come alive, the more you feel the aliveness around you. The more you see it, the more your perception is tuned into it. And a reverence begins to build. A reverence not for perfection, but for perfect imperfection. In places where you may have seen lack, you see wholeness. You see the moment and you dive so deeply into the present moment that you allow it to express in and through it as you, realizing and really remembering that you won't get that moment back, that the gift is living in that moment and taking all the good it has, which can include the richness, the depth. It can sometimes include the sadness. It can include the corrections in perception. We all have those moments where we pause and we wake up and we really see. That was in this celebration that I did for retirement, which was funny because we were looking back and forth for all these different words for retirement, because there's no such thing as retirement, is there? There's no such thing. Retirement would just be an ending. But there's waking up to what's new. But pausing for a moment to really appreciate and see and honor the era, the time period, the moments, the people, and to recognize that this unique time is not going to be repeated, that once you're in the next moment, you can't go back and get it. Some people do live in the past. Some people think of the glory days and they drag their energy back to those glory days, always wishing and hoping for it to come into the now. Some people live where the now is not enough and the future is always like, when it gets better, then I'll be at peace. When I get enough money, then I'll give. When I have enough friends, then I'll feel whole. When I get enough approval, then I'll love myself just the way I am. But there is a gift that can only be given and received in the now moment. And the ego, the separation sense mind, will always try to lead us to the future or to the past because it knows it's not needed in the present moment. It knows in the present moment that it steps apart for a while and it takes a break, it takes a breath. When you truly know that you can't save time in a bottle, that you really can't save time in a bottle. Thanks, Jim Croce. You recognize that you are with something that you better be present to, because you can't capture it. You can only live it. You can only presence it. You can't stop time. Can you feel that? Can you feel that reverence for the moment? And can you visit the past, visit who you've been in every day, every moment up until now? And in that visiting, can you see times where you were at war with the present moment? Where you were pulled out of the present moment? Where you were pulled maybe out of love with yourself? Or had a challenge seeing the beauty that was in front of you? And can you bring yourself back to those past stages of you where you may have failed to slow down, to celebrate, to perceive? The times you may have believed in mistakes when really in this now moment, you can see it was beauty unfolding all along. Can you feel that? Barnum from Barnum and Bailey in the circus, if you saw the film The Greatest Showman, if you haven't seen it, it's one to see. But in that film, they do this quote by Barnum, and it says, "Comfort is the enemy of progress. Comfort is the enemy of progress." Our discomfort can push us either into isolation or it can pull us into a deeper knowing and understanding of ourselves. That film is all about diversity. It's all about the idea of social creating social norms that make some people in and some people out. It's about the outcasts coming to center stage. The ones that are hidden, the ones that are shamed, coming front and center. In this human condition, we are all on that journey, and we are around people who are on that journey. Are we going to allow the discomfort of awakening to push us into isolation, or are we going to allow it to push us deeper into love, into knowing of ourselves? Are we going to allow it to walk us into the center of the stage? There are reasons, we all have reasons why we're taught to believe we're not enough. And we may have even taught others that. But when you feel different, when you feel like an outcast, when you feel like no one would understand you, you begin to feel alone. You begin to feel different and not part of and ostracized. When we look at spiritual principle and spiritual practice, it has the power to turn that around, because we recognize that we are not just the unrepeatable pattern, the pattern of love, the pattern of God, but we are unique in that. And that it's ours to fall in love with that uniqueness and to honor that uniqueness in others. That in fact, in that uniqueness is our strength. But it's amazing how people tear themselves up and tear each other up. In my role of serving here at UVC, I hear a lot of short stories, a lot of sacred stories are shared with me, and it breaks my heart when I hear some of the stories about people rejecting themselves or people who have loved ones who've been rejected. I hear stories about parents who have rejected their children because they are loving people other than the ones their parents hoped they would love. I hear stories about people who have taken their lives because they thought they were different, and that difference they thought was not okay or somehow not sanctioned by God. I've seen some refreshing conversations from ministers in mainstream Christianity, refreshing conversations where they talked about what they used to be against, what they used to preach against, what they used to say was wrong, what they used to say was sin, and through conscious conversations, through an authentic way of showing up, through listening, through praying, they realized they were wrong. They realized that all beings are born of pure love. And they realized the harm they can do by supporting someone to cut off one of the most beautiful avenues of love that is in our nature. Cutting off someone for how they love and who they love. There are so many ways we do this to ourselves. People do this to each other, but there are ways we do this to ourselves. Because once we've awakened, we realize someone can't do that to us unless we make an agreement with it. But before we have that realization, we may swim in this field of I'm enough, I'm not enough. We may use substance to sedate ourselves, because the pain or the confrontation feels like too much. because we don't feel like we have the strength or the faith to live the call, to be who we are, or we've been taught that what is in our nature is not whole and complete. It tears people up. This suffering, the silent suffering, suffocates the light. The light is never diminished, but it suffocates our ability to feel it. And the only way out is to move through it. The only way out is through a radical acceptance of self, to begin to see oneself as wondrously made. That comes from sacred scripture, to see oneself as wondrously made. I always think when I hear those stories about someone being afraid to come out in the LGBT community, I always feel like I wish I could just lean into them and say, if you had any idea the beauty, the unique, absolute beauty of the community that is waiting for you, the love that is waiting for you, you would be floored because you will be welcomed. Are we standing for each other in all ways, stepping into our greatness, stepping into who and whose we are? Are we willing to become radical emissaries of love? And when I say radical, I mean radical like the master teacher radical. He was a social prophet. We talk so much about all the other aspects of Jesus the Christ, but he was a social transformer. He looked around at everyone who felt different, who felt apart, who felt alone, which, friends, that's all of us at some time or another. And he welcomed them back into the fold. He said, no, we don't treat like that. Come back in. No, there's nothing wrong in there. Come back in. And he just beheld with love. He just welcomed back in, welcome back in, welcome back in. Can we stand in that same love? Sometimes with what's going on today in our African American community, I feel like, and if you've heard some of my talks before, you know I have said this, but I feel like every time I see a black woman, a black man, I want to say, I want you to know Black Lives Matter to me. I want you to know your brother matters, your sister matters, you all matter to me. I want you to know that I'm hurting with you. Are we willing to stand and to be radical speakers of love? Are we willing to stand together as one? Because it takes all of us. There is no possibility in this known universe for one of us to be suffering and in pain and for the whole body of light not to feel it. There is no such thing as separation. A Course in Miracles says, love cannot judge. As it is one itself, it looks on all as one. Its meaning lies in oneness. There is no love but God's love. No course whose purpose is to teach you to remember what you really are could fail to emphasize that there can never be a difference in what you really are and what is love. There could never be a difference in what you really are and what is love. Can we shout that from the mountaintops? Can we tell that to everyone? Can we tell that even in our darkest moments to ourselves? For whatever reasons, we may cut off parts of ourselves and call them unacceptable. For whatever reason, we may ostracize ourselves. We may begin to separate and feel different. People wouldn't understand me. Now I'm taking a path that's a little different than the norm. I'm not going to be accepted. In fact, your accepting of yourself is the liberation of all humanity. Your deep acceptance of yourself is the liberation of all humanity. Course in Miracles says we cannot leave part of us outside our love if we would know ourself. We cannot leave part of us outside our love if we would know ourself. You are whole. How can you be sure of that? Because you are here. You are alive. You are seen and you are known. Namaste.